one on the north end, or west end, I should say, of Route 11. So I typically wouldn't see them bringing in either Route 35 here or 121 when you have a highway like that. It comes east and west, and it travels quite a distance. I mean, I think that would probably, be the way. But, well, the other question I had too, or I guess comment, is typically you do use a lot of local people for construction, like excavating. I guess I'm looking at what there is for jobs for local people on that dock.
Our typical process is to hire a general contractor that is highly experienced in doing this kind of a project, both the road construction as well as the erecting turbines, which is a very specialized piece of work. They are always looking for local contractors and local labor to support their project. So there is going to be a big search for local support. In addition, it expands out to the area. So they're going to be needing more labor resources than what exists right here, and so it brings in a lot more people that then add additional benefit to the community. I mean, they're all looking for a place to live. They're looking for food and gas and restaurants and but local support is important.
I would just say during construction, you're probably looking somewhere on the order of 250 to 300 construction workers. And then during the operations of the project, you're probably looking somewhere between 5 and 7 permanent employees to operate the site. But during construction is when you have the big numbers, and yes, definitely local.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Carl Hughes.
I just had a question about the impact that this project might have on a company like Green Mountain Power that we're looking at right now for most of our power sources, I assume, throughout the whole Grafton area. And what does that do to the Green Mountain Power?
That's the local utility.
Yes. Yep. I don't know if I would try to think how to just say what it does. I mean, it's a Velco line, and then Green Mountain Power is the utility in your state, and what we would look to do is to supply this power to them as part of their supply in your state for the power. So I guess I don't really know how to say what GMP, how this would change for them, other than another supplier of renewable energy in the state that they would have the opportunity to purchase power from. Thanks.
What was that? Okay, David Acker.
I understand Meadowsend's mission statement to be very green and want to be stewards of land here in Grafton. I have a little bit of a conflict trying to understand how that is when we're doing studies talking about the killing of songbirds, the killing of bats, okay, and the desecration of a lot of the animals that might be living in these areas. To boot, with the environmental issue, I don't know how the Clean Water Act, which has just come through the U.S. government, is going to impact the headwaters that is providing fresh water for humans to drink for this project. And then the other question I have for Iberdrola, and I'm sorry to come back to the other thing, is I have a hard time when Meadowsend is telling me that buy local, but Iberdrola is from Spain. Okay, so they're a Spanish company coming into a small town like Grafton. The other comment I want to make is the human impact, the impact that these industrial wind turbines are going to have on human health. And for my neighbors who are situated on 121 West, that you and your families are going to guarantee no negative health impacts from low frequency sound, because I invite everybody here to check out on Google or YouTube, okay, all the testimonies about people who live by wind turbines and the effects on health, the human condition. That's first and foremost for this town. Okay, that's why we're a community. That's why we're here.
Does anyone want to speak to the environmental piece or the health piece from either the Meadowland or the Iberdrola side?
Dave, I'd say that we've got a proven track record on just being very conscious and incredibly sincere with what we have to manage. And again, to evaluate over time good facts and findings and studies, and then make a decision on that type of management. And all management, has impacts. Life takes life. So songbirds, other things that are impacted through this activity, if they find there's endangered raptors, other major concerns of environmental impacts, then that's a big problem. So these things, as they go along, we're going to be watching pretty closely to understand what is the impact. Conceptually, there's all this stuff out there that you can find that is good impacts and bad impacts. So with Stiles Brook here, it's a totally different, ball game of management. So the company, we're very reliant on good independent studies that are overseen by the A&R, and we're going to be guided by those people that know the science. So I guess that that's how I would manage that impact, because that's how we handle it.
And before I get to, someone want to speak to the health piece of that?
I think I would just say that, I know we didn't talk about it here this evening because I didn't really talk beyond 2016, but the Public Service Board process for a certificate of public good does take, it's very rigorous process that looks very closely at this question of impacts, health impacts, and we do a series of studies associated with that for that application. So that will be addressed during our study phase with the sound and visual and all those things that we've talked about here, in addition to being reviewed by the Public Service Board in that determination. So there's kind of two steps.
The only thing I want to add to that, if I may, is because there's a standard created by a government agency saying, hey, this is what the sound level should be, doesn't mean that the minimum wage shouldn't be lifted, or that employers shouldn't be paying more than what the minimum wage is. Just because that's the minimum doesn't mean that it's okay. It should be greater to protect the community.
Did you want to offer?
Sir, you were talking about songbirds being killed by the windmills. We do many field trips. This past week we did a Scotland, Vermont. We had 24 kids come over. And when they ask me about birds being killed by wind turbines, I tell them I have $1,000 in cash in my pocket. I'll give you all day on our wind farm, which is 7 miles of road. If you can find me one bird, that $1,000 is yours. That's how few they kill.
Lisa.
I'm Lisa Kissel. My question is really a follow-up to David's. At your facility in Hercules, New York, which I believe was opened in 2010, shortly thereafter, a number of neighbors started complaining about the noise. And Iberdrola then provided something called noise generators to drown out the sound of windmills. I'm reading from a newspaper article from 2012. And these were like fans, which were then supposed to drown out the sound of the wind turbines. Apparently this did not work too well, because a few months later, 60 neighbors of this facility sued Iberdrola for noise violations. And as I hope you know, although you haven't done some of these studies yet, you know that there are about 500 residences within 2 miles of this facility. This would be unprecedented to have so many homes, so many families with young children living so close. Are you prepared to provide 500 plus noise generating machines, little fans, to these families to drown out the sound when they cannot sleep? What is your plan with regard to that?
Lisa, I'm Paul Kopelman with Iberdrola Renewables. Also, I work with Jenny. Just I think 2 points really quickly. There's ongoing sound monitoring at the Herkimer County project, both in terms of working with the individual landowners that are there. There is an ongoing hotline that folks can call We've continued to run tests. We continue to be within, and we continue to be working with the towns who have a sound ordinance there. Again, and I'll go back to the studies that we have to do here in order to get the permit from the state of Vermont. That's an issue that we have to take very seriously, that we have to look at both in terms of the layout, in terms of how individual turbines make sound, how they might make sound together. It's something that we have to study. It's something that the state has to review. It's a very public process, and it's part of every project development that we do.
I have a couple of questions. First, is it this year, this fall that we're voting, or is it 2016?
2016, sorry.
So, I'm curious about the studies that have already been done, and can they be made available as reported, and also so that people have time to digest. It's a lot of information. And also, what those studies, what the reports, the criteria that those reports are based on. Like you said that you did the flora and the fauna and the bats and the birds of prey. Well, how many people and how many hours did you spend in the field? Stuff like that. Like really see the report, and who sets that criteria?
Well, we, like I said, we coordinated the survey plan for the Grafton study we just completed, and the breeding bird survey we're doing, and the bat surveys we're doing. And those are all, we work with the A&R, with the wildlife biologists there that oversee that work, the bird work. So, we submit work plans to them, they review them, they tell us if this meets their standards. We just finished the field work for the spring raptor survey, so we're kind of compiling that data. When we finish the field work for the raptor, or the fall survey, we'll put together a report and we'll submit it to the agency for their review and approval. At that time it would become a public document, so it would be available. That would be part of a permit application. If we get to that point where we're filing to get approval from the state, that would be an attachment to that. Any of these studies we do will all have reports associated with them and would be submitted to the appropriate agency of the state, and ultimately would be part of a permit application. So, the study effort, I can't give you number of hours we do. I mean, the raptor migration study, they go out for, I think it's like 8 or 9 hours a day. They go out for, I think, 10 to 12 days between April and May.
But that must be documented, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of this. Like I said, we submitted a work plan that said we're going to do this, and it's in accordance with accepted survey methods, with methods that the state okays, but it's basically, like I said, 10 survey days. They need to be nicer days with good visibility, and there's all sorts of parameters and factors to go in whether or not they would go out or not. But for the spring, they do it, I think, 10 times. I think it's like 8 or 9 hours a day. It's Noel and another guy from Stantec, or a woman from Stantec, sitting at predetermined locations on the site, looking, binoculars, whatever other equipment they need to document all the birds that are within the project area, outside the project area, document how high they're flying, those kinds of things. The breeding bird survey, it is a few days in the beginning of June and a few days towards the end of June. There's 33 locations that the ornithologists go. Between sunrise and 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. They'll go spend a set amount of time at each location, look for birds, listen for birds, and then they, like I said, spend a set amount of time that's been proposed to the agency and accepted by the agency, and then they'll go to the next location and the next location. They do that over the course of 2 or 3 days, in the beginning of June and at the end of June. And then when that's done, we put together a report that's submitted, reviewed, questions are asked by us, of the agency, we respond to them, answer any kind of questions that we have. And then that's, again, part of a permit application that we submitted when that's happened.
And can we review those reports with the details of the time spent and how
Yeah.
many people and all that stuff? And in regards to the floral and the fauna, like, do you cover every square acre or?
Well, we would coordinate, we would have a sense of where turbines are gonna go, and where roads are gonna go, and where we're gonna be, digging and disturbing what's already out there. And we would take that to the agency, and they would review their documents and their files and their mapping, and they would let us know if they know of any occurrences of rare plants or any kind of rare animals in those areas. We would coordinate, if they say we need to do surveys to document whether they're there or not, we would work with them to get the timing. Sometimes these things can be done in the spring or in the summer, depending on when they flower or when they might be visible. So we would work with them to get all that squared away and then do those studies. And it would be focused on either where they say they might be or the habitat they might be in, or it would be focused on a corridor that we define based on where turbines might go, roads might go, those kinds of things. So a lot of the studies I was talking about are more based on where turbines would go, roads would go. So we'll work within those study corridors, and implement a plan that has been reviewed by the experts that we use.
My name is John Evans, and this has to do with more of the economics of this project. My concern is when technology replaces wind generators, what happens to this if this project did get going? What happens to the towers?
What we do is, every project that we have, and Vermont has a very strict law and rule about this, it's a decommissioning agreement, a decommissioning fund. So the money is actually set aside so that, if any reason this project no longer makes sense from an economic standpoint as far as generating energy, and we skip town, that money is set aside for the turbines to be taken down. And that's not going to happen, but you're protected. The state of Vermont requires that you're protected, that you don't end up with wind turbines that don't operate.
And how long are these wind generators supposed to operate? Once you've installed?
25 years.
So at 25 years, what happens to the wind generators?
We would either, with technology, as I was saying earlier, if technology is better, maybe you change something, reconfigure a different generator. I don't know out 25 years, but if it makes sense, upgrade it. If it doesn't make sense, take it down.
Well, 25 years goes by pretty quickly, so I hope everyone kind of puts that into their...
We haven't had one go 25 years yet, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to let everyone know, the food is ready and everyone is welcome at their convenience to go up and come back or not come back. But we'll still take questions from the group for another 10 or 15 minutes. Stan.
Yeah, you always have this thing that everybody wants power, everybody needs power, but nobody wants power produced in their own backyard. That being said, the windmill situation seems to be a particularly sticky situation, almost no matter where you go. With 5,000 acres of timberland, I believe it's 5,000, right in the middle of it, why don't you put up biomass or something? You got enough trees to keep a biomass plant going for a significant period of time, and you don't have these big things whirling around producing liquor in people's homes. So go to biomass.
Sounds like a question for you. Obviously not an Iberdrola question, that would be an MTL question.
I'm not an engineer when it comes to energy and the efficiency of biomass.
I mean, it's just one of those other
feasibility of constructing a biomass plant in the middle of.
More of those being built in Vermont than there are wind farms.
I don't know that. I know there's two biomass facilities that we market our biomass products to. And one's in Grafton, Vermont, and the other one's in Burlington, Vermont. There's no other commercial biomass facility.
There are smaller ones.
They're small, exactly, in public facilities and small units.
Charlie, quick question. So good wind data came from the north, and the less wind production came from the south. Where is Grafton? North of this or south of this?
Grafton is actually east of the project area. Southeast.
So are we in the southern part of the Stylesbrook port?
Yes.
So this could end up being a winded project. If there's no good wind coming from Grafton, it's a winded project.
I did not say that it was not good wind. I just indicated that at the lower elevations, which exist at the southern part of the MTL Stylesbrook Forest, the wind resource was not as good as it was at the higher elevations in the north. But it has an impact in turbine selection and a lot of variables that would go into whether that lower wind resource can be an effective part of the project.
Okay. At this time, we're going to move into the one-on-one session. I'll take final questions. How many do we still have for the group? Okay, go ahead, Sam.
I'm saying that Jeremy, I've always been confused. How many acres do you guys manage? I've heard 20, 25, 30, I don't know. Could you just explain that to me, how many acres you guys actually manage?
Yeah, and then is there follow-up questions to that? Is that the only question?
Why, no, that's the only question I
Okay.
really have.
The family owns 34,000 acres.
And it's all in Vermont?
No. It's in 4 states.
It's in 4 states?
Correct.
So that must make you one of the bigger family-owned foresters, isn't it?
We're the second largest private landowner in the state of Vermont.
Wow, okay. Okay, thank you.
And then we manage another 26,000 acres for private folks like you that have their own wood lot out back, looking for consultation.
How do you rank in the United States? Must be,
Oh,
it's a family-owned. It's small? I mean, it's a family-owned company? Okay, thank you.
Okay, one last question for the group, and then I'll let Jenny wrap up.
Okay, I'm a little bit behind here because part of this has been answered, but I'll be short and sweet. You have TIS towers up there now, is that correct?
Correct.
How many?
3 of them.
And how tall are they?
60 meters, of just under
Compared
200
to
feet.
what you're going to put up there, if in fact the project goes forward? What is the height of a turbine that you're going to put up there?
The meteorological towers there now. The meteorological towers that are up there now, as Jenny indicated, are 60 meters, a little under 200 feet, rounded off to 200 feet. The turbines to the top of the tip, if the blade is vertical, are going to be a little less than 500 feet.
So 200 to 500.
200 to 500.
With the blade, if the blade's straight.
Right, I've seen them, and they do make a little noise, I'll say that for everybody's benefit. But my question is, in addition to that, you've got roads around here, and I know you're talking construction of roads and so forth to get these things there. What time of day are you going to be moving this that is not going to impact the town and its ability to function during the course of the day? Is it night work only, or, and what's the sound effect going to be for people that live very close proximity to these places?
That's part of the assessment that needs to be done. The transport is typically required, these are oversized loads, so it's typically required during daytime hours. They typically require escort vehicles and flagging and traffic control. And to say that moving these is not going to affect local traffic, that's just not the case. It is going to have an impact.
Normal conditions, at a normal time of day, what is the time of day that you feel that is best suited to do your work here, it's not going to disrupt anything? Is it morning, midnight, or sometime during the late night hours?
Typically, it would be done during the day. But again, transportation surveys have not been done. We haven't analyzed the route. We haven't looked at it. But typically, work is done during the day.
Jenny, you want to close out?
Yes, I think folks had a chance to hear Kevin O'Neill and his wife Debbie is with him. And then sitting over here, if you raise your hand, Dan and Janie Murdy. They're from Lewis County, New York, and part of our project up at Maple Ridge in New York. So during the one-on-one, if folks want to say hello, they've had some experiences with us to share. Thank you all.
So this concludes the group portion. by all means, please feel free to engage a representative